For centuries, the people of Yemen have whispered about a pit so dark, so cursed, they called it the Well of Hell, a place where light itself seems to vanish, where ancient legends warned that spirits and jinn were trapped, waiting to ensnare anyone who dared to come close. Its mystery has terrified locals, baffled travelers for ages, and inspired some of the most chilling legends in Arabian folklore. But when a team of scientists finally descended into its depths, what they uncovered wasn't just shocking, it changed everything we thought we knew about the line between myth and reality. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the stranger this story gets. Long before modern science touched its edges, the Well of Barhout was woven into the spiritual fabric of Yemeni culture. Located in Yemen's eastern Al-Mahra province, close to the border with Oman, this massive sinkhole stretches over 98 feet wide at the surface and plunges nearly 367 feet deep. Its sheer blackness makes it look like a mouth opening in the desert itself, swallowing all light. Locals believed it wasn't just a hole, it was a gateway. A gateway to what? To some, it was the very prison of jinn.
People believe that the well is inhabited by jinn,
The supernatural beings described in Islamic tradition. To others, it was a kind of purgatory, a barzakh, a place separating the living from the souls of the damned. Legends whispered that the water within was cursed, poisoned by evil spirits, and anyone who drank it would be doomed. Even religious texts fed into the fear. Some Islamic scholars cited hadith suggesting that the worst water on earth flowed from Barhout. For villagers, that sealed it. This was no ordinary sinkhole. It was a portal to a darker reality. The folklore surrounding the well only grew stronger over centuries. Travelers who came too close claimed to hear low, eerie moans echoing from its depths. Shepherds said flocks avoided it, animals refusing to graze near its edges. And then there were the disappearances. People claimed that those who ventured inside, or even threw stones down to test its depth, sometimes never heard the stone hit bottom. In the minds of the people, that silence confirmed the belief that the well didn't end in soil or stone. It ended in hell itself. Even in modern times, Yemenis avoided it. Some feared that even standing near the rim too long could attract misfortune. This fear left the well largely untouched, its mysteries preserved by the terror it inspired. But for scientists and explorers, that fear only fueled their curiosity. In 2021, that curiosity turned into action. A group known as the Omani Caves Exploration Team, OCET, led by geologist Mohammed Al-Kindi, set out to finally unravel the mystery. This wasn't an easy decision. Yemen was, and still is, gripped by war and instability. The well itself is located in one of the most remote, arid regions of the country, where temperatures soar and the desert stretches endlessly. Simply reaching it required grit, planning, and determination. But Al-Kindi's team wasn't just chasing legends. They were scientists. They wanted to map the sinkhole, study its geology, and uncover what was really hiding in a place long written off as cursed. And so, armed with ropes, harnesses, climbing gear, cameras, and sheer courage, they prepared to descend into the Well of Hell, to see firsthand what generations had only feared from afar. Picture the scene. It's September 2021. The air is still, the desert is silent, and the rim of the well looms like the edge of the unknown. The OCET team gathers, their gear clinking as they prepare. Villagers watch from a distance, eyes wide with apprehension. One by one, the explorers step forward, clip onto the ropes, and begin lowering themselves into the gaping maw. As they dangle over the edge, the blackness swallows them whole. At about 100 feet down, sunlight still trickles in, illuminating rocky walls. Al-Kindi radios up, beautiful formations here, stalactites, unusual textures, no jinn yet. Nervous laughter crackles through the walkie-talkie, but the deeper they go, the darker it becomes. Soon, only headlamps cut through the pitch black. The sounds change too. The whisper of ropes rubbing rock, the drip of water, the faint rush of something below. Air, or something else. And then, they reach the end of their ropes, but not the bottom. The well is deeper than expected. They need longer ropes. For a moment, the team hangs suspended in the void, staring down into what still seems like endless darkness. What waits below? Caves? Water? Or something more sinister? The legend presses in on them. The thought of vanishing forever in the pit must have crossed their minds. But explorers push forward, and new ropes are lowered. Finally, they touch down. For the first time in recorded history, humans are standing at the bottom of the Well of Hell. What they found down there was nothing like the legends. Instead of flames, spirits, or overwhelming stench, they discovered a subterranean world of natural wonder. Rising from the floor were massive stalagmites, some soaring nearly 30 feet high, formed over countless centuries as minerals dripped and hardened into pillars. All around them, delicate cave pearls gleamed, some tinged with an otherworldly green from mineral deposits. And perhaps most breathtaking of all, 4 underground waterfalls, each cascading nearly 150 feet, their waters sparkling as they disappeared into pools carved into the stone. It was not hell. It was a hidden cathedral of Earth's geology, untouched, unseen, and yet alive with mystery. The explorers also found life. Snakes, frogs, and beetles slithered and crawled in the damp environment. And yes, the smell locals had spoken of did exist, but its source wasn't supernatural. It was the smell of dead animals, mostly birds, that had fallen in and decayed. As for the water, the biggest surprise of all, it wasn't poisoned. In fact, it was fresh, clean, and drinkable. Al-Kindi himself sipped from it to prove the point. Generations had feared it, avoided it, and told terrifying stories about it. But the truth? It was simply one of nature's most extraordinary creations. But here's the real twist. This discovery wasn't just about busting myths. It raised deeper questions about why humans create legends around the unknown, and what other places on Earth might still be waiting to shatter everything we think we know. When the explorers resurfaced, dusty and grinning, carrying photos, rock samples, and fresh water in plastic bottles, the villagers who had gathered around the rim were stunned. For years, centuries even, they had avoided this place as a site of doom. But now, right before their eyes, science had cracked the myth. They weren't looking at cursed souls or jinn-infested water anymore. They were looking at evidence: stalagmites, waterfalls, cave pearls, even life forms thriving below. Geologist Mohammed Al-Kindi did something remarkable. Instead of hoarding the discovery for academic journals, he shared it openly with the people. He poured out the water and drank from it to prove it wasn't cursed. He showed photos of the underground waterfalls. Suddenly, the well of hell wasn't a place of dread anymore. It was a place of wonder. This was more than exploration. It was transformation. And in a country struggling with war and despair, it offered a rare spark of hope. Why did legends take root here in the first place? To understand that, you have to imagine life centuries ago in the deserts of Yemen. Resources were scarce. Knowledge was limited. A giant black hole in the ground that smelled foul and swallowed birds whole? It wasn't just unusual. It was terrifying. In Islamic tradition, natural phenomena were often given moral or spiritual explanations. Scholars suggest that the idea of Barhout holding the worst water on Earth may have been tied to these local fears, later amplified by folklore. In the absence of exploration, imagination filled the void, and the stories spread, of voices rising from the pit, of lights at night, of livestock that wandered too close and vanished. Each retelling made the well more terrifying. But here's the kicker. Fear often keeps us from the truth. For generations, nobody dared to face the unknown, until science finally replaced silence with evidence. What's fascinating is that, geologically speaking, the Well of Barhout isn't unique at all. It's a collapsed sinkhole. These massive craters form when underground water erodes soft limestone or gypsum, carving out hollow chambers. Eventually, the weight above becomes too heavy, and the surface collapses, leaving behind a gaping pit. In fact, the features the explorers found, stalagmites, waterfalls, cave pearls, are hallmarks of karst topography, common in regions with soluble rock. But while sinkholes exist all over the world, in Florida, in Mexico's cenotes, in China's giant Tiankengs, the Well of Hell stood apart for one reason: its mythology. This was not just a hole, it was a canvas onto which people projected fear, religion, and mystery. And when science stepped in, it transformed not just our knowledge of geology, but our understanding of how myths are born. The well didn't just hold rocks and water, it held life. Snakes slithered in the damp shadows, frogs croaked from hidden pools, and beetles crawled across mineral-encrusted walls. For scientists, this was important. The animals weren't otherworldly, but they showed how ecosystems can thrive in the most extreme conditions. Even more intriguing was the possibility of microbial life. Caves like this often host unique bacteria adapted to darkness, isolation, and mineral-rich water. Samples collected from Barhout may one day reveal entirely new strains of microorganisms, some with potential scientific or even medical applications. So while locals once saw the well as cursed, scientists now see it as a potential goldmine of discovery. an underground laboratory created by nature itself. The story of the Well of Hell is more than geology or folklore. It's symbolic. Think about it. A dark hole in the desert, feared by generations, avoided by shepherds, wrapped in legend. It represents the unknown. And for humanity, the unknown is always the most terrifying thing of all. But when explorers finally entered, what they found wasn't damnation. It was beauty. Stalagmites like organ pipes, waterfalls sparkling like silver ribbons, pearls of stone glistening under headlamps. It was a reminder. The unknown often isn't as terrifying as the stories we tell about it. In fact, it may hold more wonder than we ever imagined. This leads us to an even deeper question. Why do humans create such terrifying myths in the first place? Psychologists argue that myths serve a purpose. They give form to fear. They help communities explain the unexplainable. By labeling the well as cursed, ancient Yemenis gave themselves a story to justify their terror. But here's the paradox. Once those myths take hold, they can last for centuries, long after the fear itself should have faded. The Well of Hell shows us how fragile the line between truth and belief really is. One descent, one scientific mission, was enough to undo centuries of superstition. When the news broke in 2021 that explorers had entered the well and found no jinn, the global media lit up. Headlines read, "Scientists finally explore Yemen's Well of Hell, and it's beautiful." People around the world were fascinated, not just by the geology, but by the story of myth-busting. Videos of the descent went viral. Photos of the waterfalls and cave pearls spread across social media, captivating millions. In a way, the Well of Hell became a global metaphor. It wasn't just about Yemen anymore. It was about the courage to face fears, to confront legends, and to replace myth with knowledge. So why does this matter? Why does a sinkhole in Yemen change everything? Because it reminds us that the world is still full of mysteries, that our planet still hides secrets in plain sight, waiting for brave souls to uncover them. It shows us that legends, no matter how terrifying, can crumble under the weight of truth, and that by facing the unknown, we often discover beauty where we expected horror. And most of all, it reveals something about ourselves, that curiosity is stronger than fear, and that knowledge has the power to transform not just landscapes, but entire cultures. You might think the story ends with explorers descending into the Well of Hell, busting the myths, and declaring victory for science. But in reality, that was just the beginning. Because what they found inside, stalagmites, waterfalls, living creatures, wasn't just a curiosity. It raised bigger, deeper questions. Questions about how many other legends are waiting to be rewritten. Questions about the hidden ecosystems beneath our feet. And questions about how humanity's relationship with fear and the unknown might be changing forever. This is where the story turns from local folklore to global revelation. One of the most striking things about the Well of Hell was the biodiversity inside. Sure, it wasn't overflowing with exotic monsters, but the very fact that snakes, frogs, and insects lived there showed that ecosystems can survive in what seem like uninhabitable environments. And that's important, because caves and sinkholes often serve as time capsules. They trap air, water, and organisms that have been sealed off from the surface for centuries, sometimes millennia. Exploring them can provide snapshots of evolution, climate history, and even microbial life that doesn't exist anywhere else on Earth. In the Well of Barhout, the Omani team collected samples not just of rocks and water, but of soil and tiny organisms. Scientists now believe that future studies of those samples could uncover previously unknown strains of bacteria, some of which might help us understand resilience in extreme environments. Why does that matter? Because extreme environments on Earth are often analogs for conditions on other planets. Studying life in the Well of Hell could one day inform the search for life on Mars, Europa, or Enceladus. So, in a strange way, the myths weren't entirely wrong. The well may not be a gateway to hell, but it is a gateway to another world. The Well of Hell isn't unique in its mythology. Around the world, humanity has told stories about mysterious pits, caves, and sinkholes. In Ireland, there's the Hellfire Club.
The Hellfire Club, pretty famous location, maybe more famous by ghost adventures, etc.
A ruined hunting lodge said to stand on a prehistoric burial site, long thought to be cursed. In Siberia, the Batagaica crater is nicknamed the gateway to the underworld. In Central America, the Mayans considered the cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula as portals to the afterlife, sacred places where offerings and even human sacrifices were made. What's fascinating is how similar these myths are. Across cultures, deep dark holes in the earth have almost always been linked to the supernatural. hell, underworlds, spirits. It seems to be a universal human instinct. If you can't see what's inside, you imagine the worst. The Well of Hell fits neatly into that tradition, but unlike many legends, this one has now been physically explored and explained, and that makes it a powerful case study in how myths evolve and how they die. Here's a thought that might unsettle you. When a myth dies, what replaces it? For centuries, the people of Al-Mahra saw the well as a cursed pit, a place to fear. That fear kept them safe. Nobody tried to live near it. Nobody polluted it. Nobody tampered with its waters. In an odd way, the myth protected the well. Now, with the myth gone, what happens? Could curiosity and tourism bring new dangers? Could exploitation follow? It's a question that explorers often face. The moment you shine light into darkness, you change it forever. The Well of Hell has gone from a forbidden place to a potential natural attraction. Some argue that this is progress, that myths holding communities back are being stripped away. Others worry that the raw, untouched nature of these places could be lost once the legends no longer guard them. It's a dilemma. Is it better for mysteries to remain mysteries, or for them to be unveiled no matter the cost? The story of the Well of Hell taps into something deep within us, the human urge to explore. From the first sailors who braved the edges of maps labeled "Here be dragons," to astronauts pushing beyond Earth's orbit, we've always been drawn to the unknown. Sometimes it's fear that drives us. Other times, it's curiosity. But almost always, the moment we arrive, we realize the unknown isn't as terrifying as we imagined. The Well of Barhout is a small but powerful example of that pattern. People avoided it for centuries. Yet in a single descent, humans replaced fear with wonder. And that cycle keeps repeating, on land, in the oceans, in space. The Well of Hell reminds us that no matter how terrifying the unknown seems, the moment we confront it, the universe reveals itself to be far more beautiful than we expected. For Yemen, a country long associated with conflict, famine, and hardship, the Well of Hell brought an unexpected kind of story, a story of discovery and pride. When the Omani team shared their findings, Yemeni officials and scientists expressed excitement. For once, the headlines weren't about war, but about wonder. The well became a symbol, not of fear, but of resilience. In fact, some Yemeni geologists have since suggested that the well could serve as a site for ecotourism or even scientific research centers once peace returns to the region. Imagine it, a place once feared as a prison of demons becoming a hub for education and exploration. It's a reminder that even in the darkest places, literally and figuratively, hope can be found. But here's the twist. While the Well of Hell's myths were disproven, not all mysteries were solved. There are still questions about its exact formation, its hidden biology, and what else lies in the unexplored chambers beneath its waterfalls. Even though the Well of Hell has been entered, explored, and mapped, not every mystery has been resolved. In fact, the expedition may have raised more questions than it answered. For example, geologists know the well is a collapsed sinkhole, but its exact timeline of formation remains unclear. Did it collapse suddenly centuries ago, sparking the early legends? Or has it been gradually widening over millennia? Rock analysis might one day pin down the true age of the sinkhole, but for now, it remains an open question. Then there's the matter of hidden chambers. The Oket team discovered underground waterfalls and small side caverns, but large sections remain unexplored. Caves are notorious for containing labyrinths of tunnels invisible from the main chamber. Could there be deeper levels? Could there be entirely separate ecosystems sealed away for millions of years that we haven't yet glimpsed? And perhaps most intriguing, the microbial life. Samples collected may one day reveal organisms unknown to science, creatures that thrive without sunlight, relying on minerals and chemical reactions instead. If discovered, they could shed light on how life first evolved on Earth, or how it might exist elsewhere in the universe. So while the myths of demons and jinn have been dismissed, the Well of Hell still guards secrets. If you look at it symbolically, the well has undergone a transformation as dramatic as any place on Earth. Once, it was feared as cursed. Now, it is celebrated as natural wonder. Once, it was avoided. Now, it attracts curiosity from scientists, travelers, and storytellers around the world. This shift mirrors a larger truth about humanity, that knowledge is not static. What one generation fears, the next may embrace. What one culture mythologizes, another may analyze. And in the process, places like the Well of Hell become symbols, not of fear, but of our capacity to change. Think about that. The same dark pit once thought to hold demons now holds waterfalls and pearls. The story didn't change because the well changed. It changed because we did. And this raises an even bigger question. If the well of hell was misunderstood for so long, how many other places on Earth are still hiding behind myth and rumor? The ocean, for example, is still 80% unexplored. In its depths, people once imagined sea serpents and krakens. Today, we've discovered giant squids, bioluminescent fish, and hydrothermal vent ecosystems that thrive without sunlight. The rainforests, too, hold mysteries. New species are still discovered every year. Mountains, deserts, frozen tundras all carry stories of spirits, gods, and monsters that once terrified people. And with every expedition, science rewrites those stories with new knowledge. The Well of Hell is not an isolated discovery. It is part of a pattern. The unknown shrinks, little by little, as courage expands. But here's something to sit with. Do we lose something when myths die? Some anthropologists argue that myths give meaning to life, that they connect humans to mystery, to the spiritual, to the imaginative. When the well was seen as cursed, it wasn't just geology. It was morality, religion, and culture wrapped into one. Now that it has been explained, it risks becoming just another sinkhole. So here's the tension. Science gives us truth, but myth gives us meaning. Perhaps the Well of Hell's greatest gift is showing us that both can coexist. It can be a geological wonder and a cultural symbol. It can inspire scientific curiosity and remind us of the power of stories. Because ultimately, humans don't live by facts alone. We live by the stories we tell about them. The descent into the Well of Hell offers lessons for future exploration. First, it proves that fear is often the biggest barrier to discovery. For centuries, people stayed away because of stories. One courageous team shattered that barrier. How many other discoveries are waiting simply because we're still too afraid to look? Second, it highlights the importance of collaboration. The OSET team was small, but they represented a bridge between cultures. Omani scientists exploring a Yemeni legend, bringing knowledge across borders. In a fractured world, that kind of collaboration is more important than ever. And third, it reminds us that the unknown is not infinite. Every myth we confront, every legend we test, brings us closer to understanding our world. That doesn't kill mystery. It pushes it further out, into the cosmos, into the future. The Well of Hell is a milestone. It tells us we're ready to confront even bigger unknowns. And that brings us to perhaps the most mind-bending idea of all. Exploring the Well of Hell isn't just about Yemen. It's about Earth. It's about the universe. Because if life can exist in a lightless, mineral-rich sinkhole in the middle of the desert, what does that say about life in the broader cosmos? Astrobiologists often say, to understand space, study Earth's extremes. Volcanoes, polar ice caps, hydrothermal vents, and now, caves like Barhout. They are training grounds for the mind. Each discovery here gives us a framework for imagining what might exist out there. So in an unexpected way, the Well of Hell doesn't just change how we see Yemen. It changes how we see ourselves as explorers of the universe. And that brings us full circle. The Well of Hell began as a story of fear. It ended as a story of wonder. But its greatest lesson may be this: the unknown is never what we think it is. So, what do you think we'll find when we finally confront the next Well of Hell? Will it be more proof that our fears are illusions? Or will some legends finally turn out to be true? If this story fascinated you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more explorations into the mysteries of our world. And drop your thoughts in the comments. If you could explore one legendary place on Earth, where would you go? Because one day, it might not be just explorers, it might be you standing at the edge of the unknown.